Hey everyone, welcome back. Now we're going to talk about moral nihilism. This is the last video. It's going to be pretty short. So, if you're a moral subjectivist, then some have argued that what you really are is a moral nihilist. So, what is a moral nihilist? Well, on this view, moral nihilism, nothing is morally right or wrong. That's nihilism. They deny that there is any morality. There's nothing right or wrong. Nothing is morally good or morally bad. You have no moral obligations and nothing is morally forbidden. Everything, all actions are equal. None are morally better or worse than any other. So in the trolley problem, there's no right or wrong answer. There's no sense in which you should pull the lever, and there's no sense in which you shouldn't. Either you pull the lever or you don't, and that there's nothing more to be said about it. More people die in one case. You cause a person's death in one case. But there's no moral value. There's no worth there. Neither is better. Neither outcome, neither action is better or worse than the other. Morality is just an illusion, according to the moral nihilist. And if morality is all an illusion, then pushing someone off a bridge is just an action. It isn't good. It isn't bad. It's not better or worse than not pushing someone off a bridge. It's just different. That's it. Nothing is morally right or wrong. Nothing is good or bad. Sitting on a couch and stabbing a stranger are both just actions. They are two different ways you could spend your time. And one problem for this view is that you have to say things like the Nazis did nothing wrong. If you're a moral nihilist, then that is literally true. The Nazis did not do anything wrong because nothing is morally wrong. Genocide is not morally wrong because nothing is morally wrong at all if you're a moral nihilist. According to moral nihilism, there's no such thing as right or wrong. So, of course, the Nazis did nothing wrong. They also did nothing right. Martin Luther King Jr. did nothing wrong. He did nothing right either. No one does anything right or wrong if there's no such thing as right or wrong. And you might think, like we said before, with moral relativism, you might think that the Nazis did something wrong is just a Morian truth that you are going to hold on to, that's just so obviously true that any philosophical argument to the contrary must be wrong. And if you accept that, then you're going to have a hard time being a moral nihilist. Because the moral nihilist has to say that no one has ever done anything morally wrong. Because there's no such thing that's morally wrong. There's no such thing as morality. So if there's no such thing as morality, then there's nothing wrong with anything. There's nothing wrong with murder. There's nothing wrong with genocide. There's nothing wrong with absolutely anything. And it's common to have a very strong intuition, a strong sense, a strong belief that what the Nazis did really was wrong. It was morally bad. And anyone who says differently is incorrect. But you have to give that belief up if you're a nihilist. And you might not want to give that belief up. You might not be able to give that belief up. And this is a problem for moral nihilism. Besides the sort of you have to say the Nazis did nothing wrong objection that relativism, subjectivism, and nihilism are all subject to. So another problem is that we talk in terms of good and bad and right and wrong and should and ought all the time. We use what you might call sort of moralizing language all the time. You shouldn't do that. You ought to do this. That's not good. That's bad. That's right. That was wrong, etc. We say those sorts of things all the time. And if you're a moral nihilist, then every statement using those terms, every time you tell someone they ought to do something or that they should do something, that's false. Every time you say that an action was wrong, that's false. Every time you say something is good, like morally good, if you say giving to charity is good or murder is bad, that's strictly speaking false. every such statement is false. But it's pretty hard to completely give up any use of moralizing language. It's hard to give up every use of the sort of should, ought language, or the right, wrong, good, bad kind of language. And if you can't stop saying and thinking these sorts of things, if you can't stop saying and thinking that things are good or bad, or that something's right or something's wrong, or that people or you should or shouldn't do things, if you can't stop thinking and saying those claims, then it looks like you can't stop believing them. If you keep thinking and saying them, then you, on some level, believe them. You believe that you shouldn't do this, and that they should do this, and that you ought to do that, and that this is good and this is wrong. If you can't stop saying all that stuff, that probably means you believe that stuff. You believe that you shouldn't kill people, and that you should give to charity, that you should call your mother sometimes, or whatever you're using should, ought language to say, you probably believe it. If you can't stop saying it, then it looks like you aren't really a nihilist after all. You might say you're a moral nihilist, you might think you should be a moral nihilist, but if you can't stop yourself from thinking and talking in terms of moralizing language, then it looks like you deep down really do believe in morality on some level. And so then you're not really a nihilist after all. If you believe in morality on some level, then on some level you aren't a nihilist, because a nihilist by definition does not believe in any morality. And so if you can't even really believe moral nihilism, then you just aren't a moral nihilist. And that's something a little different than an objection to the view, where it's not that the view is false, it's that you don't actually believe it. Even if you think you do, you actually don't. And so maybe deep down, you'll always think some things are morally right and morally wrong. And if you always deep down think some things are morally right, morally wrong, then deep down, you're never a moral nihilist. Now, maybe with time and training and effort, you could stop from using all the moralizing language, but you might not be able to. And if you can't, then you just aren't a moral nihilist. And that's a problem for the view. If you genuinely can't believe the view, if you can't bring yourself to believe the view, that's probably a sign that something's wrong with the view. All right. And so that's moral nihilism. All right, so those are all the meta-ethical views I want to talk about this week. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in the videos next week.